Good evening, everybody. My name is Ahmed Dents. I am the Director of Venue Experience and Artistic Associate here at San Diego Repertory Theater. And I would like to welcome you to We Are Listening. This is our bi weekly salon where we celebrate and showcase the lives, experiences of those who identify as Black in theater, performing arts of all kinds. And we welcome you to our show tonight. This is a special edition because this will be the last edition of We Are Listening for the summer. We will be back in September as we get ready to just take a little break, reorganize, and figure out how we turn these into live and virtual events as most of San Diego theaters get ready to open back up. Before I welcome our guest and my co-host, I do want to do a quick announcement. I would like to do a land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the theater spaces and offices of San Diego Rep are built on the traditional lands of the Ipai Tipai Kumeyaay Nation. We also want to recognize their neighbors in the region, the Payel Kowachium, the Kahalia, and the Kapuna peoples. We are grateful to these community members for their tremendous contributions to our region and thank them for their continual stewardship. San Diego Rep honors Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future, here and around the world, and we wish to pay respect to local elders, including those from the lands which you may be joining us from today. Again, thank you and welcome to We Are Listening. And with that being said, please welcome my co-host, La Jolla Playhouse, Director of Arts Engagement and In-House Casting, Jacole Kitchen. What's up, Jacole?
Hey, Ahmed. Hey, everybody. How's it
Uh,
going?
I'm good. I'm good. This is, like I said, we wrapping up season one of
Season
We
one,
Are
baby. We
Listening.
made it.
We
We
made
made it
it.
through
We
a
made
season.
it.
That's how you know you made it when you got a season one.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. Well, okay, theater kid, let me go ahead and turn this over to you. And as we get into some announcements and then we'll welcome our guests, why don't you go ahead and let us know what's going on over around the Playhouse Way?
Ooh, Lord. I
Yeah.
am a theater kid for real because we are back in it. I am at the theater coming to you all live and direct from La Jolla Playhouse where we got some things going on. DNA is kicking off tonight. We have our DNA new work series, 4 plays over 2 weekends. Get your tickets now. There is still space available. We have a show tonight, we got a show tomorrow, we got a show on Thursday, whatever, all weekend, and then next weekend as well. I'm losing my headphones, I get real excited. I just lost them both. All right, I'm back. You got me. All right, I'm back. So DNA this weekend and next weekend, 4 plays over 2 weeks. Then coming up next weekend, we have a very special performance. Hassan Minhaj is doing the Hassan Minhaj experimental time. There are still seats available for next Saturday and Sunday. We have Hassan with us Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's performances at 7 and 9:30. Actor, comedian is going to be doing a one-person show, trying out some new material. We're so excited that he has chosen La Jolla Playhouse as one of the maybe 5 venues in the entire country in which he's going to be trying out this material. So still space available in the Hassan Minhaj experiment time. Also, and then our season kicks off, y'all. We're kicking off our season in September with The Garden by Charlene Woodard, directed by Patricia McGregor, and starring San Diego's own Monique Gaffney. It is going to be Black girl magic, y'all. Hoping to come back live in September with some folks from The Garden in the next iteration, season 2 of We Are Listening. That's what we've got going on here. Ahmed, what's going on over at the Globe and the Playhouse? I mean, I'm
Uh,
the Playhouse,
at
you're the rep.
at the Globe. Yeah, you already told me what's going on at the Playhouse. You got this Playhouse on the brain, theater kid. Over at the Globe, because we can't get our third wheel to join us and do these announcements with us. But Freedom, don't worry, we got your back. Over at the Globe, make sure you check out their production of Hair beginning on August 10th through September 26th. Theater is back, y'all. It is going down. Make sure you head on over to theoldglobe.org. Check out all their stuff that's going on. And over here at the Rep, if I can get this out of my way the correct way. Over here at the Rep. Now, y'all don't want to see that. See what we're doing on Facebook. Over here at the Rep, we have got 57 Chevy, starring Rick Salinas. This is a very, very funny film. We have done it in film form. It will begin streaming on July 26th. That is in 4 days. Again, 57 Chevy, starring Rick Salinas of Culture Clash. Is written by Chris Franco and directed by Herbert Seguenza, our theater and our artist in residence, and of course our artistic director Sam Woodhouse. Again, beginning streaming July 26th through August 15th. So head on over to sdrep.org and get your tickets. Again, head on over to theoldglobe.org. Check out everything that's going on and visit lajollaplayhouse.org. We are getting ready to come back, and hopefully when we come back, we will have an announcement of a live edition of We Are Listening, to where you can come and kick it with us and be part of a live audience along with the virtual audience. And that's how we are going to get down.
Yeah, we want to see some of y'all super fans. We want to see y'all in person. I know that we have your names in our boxes here, but we appreciate y'all tuning in every week, being a part of the We Are Listening family. We hope to see you live and in person for season 2.
Yeah, and don't worry, we'll keep you up to date. If you have been ready, if you've registered for on Zoom for any of these talks, we have your email addresses. I have all that good stuff. I'll make sure I keep you guys notified. All of the 3 organizations will keep everybody notified of when we're going to get back to doing this thing live. So just be on the lookout and be ready. With that,
okay, can we get to it now? Can we get to it?
Let's go ahead. Let's get into it. We have a very special guest joining us tonight. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. He is the assistant dean and assistant professor adjunct in theater management at the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale, and the general manager of Yale Repertory Theater. And those are just a few things. Those are just a few things that the brother does. Please welcome to We Are Listening, Kelvin Dinkins Jr. Kelvin, come on in and join us in the room.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Now, we talked a little bit earlier. You know our tradition here. We give a brief introduction, but we really like the guests to tell our audience a little bit about themselves and how they got to this point to where they are in the performing arts world. So why don't you go ahead and give us a little synopsis of how you started off in this thing and how we got to where we are today.
Oh, wow. All right. I'll try and do it in reasonable time. But the bullet point is, as Jacole says, I'm a theater kid, right? Theater is something I came to a little bit later in life in high school. I went to a boarding school in North Georgia called Raven Gap Nacoochee School. And they have a beautiful facility. They have beautiful arts and performing arts facility down there. And one of the things I saw before they moved into this new impressive facility was a production of Mame. And it was in like a backlot theater, and almost the whole school was in it, right? It was this very small boarding school, and it's co-ed college prep. And I'm watching this production, and I'm like, everyone's doing something. This is exciting. There's singing, there's some dancing. I was like, this is great. I was like, how do you do that? I was like, I can do that, right? So I signed up for the theater class and got to learn the basics, right? All the warm-ups, all the sort of improv skills, all of those things. And I auditioned for my first spring show that year and got one of the leads. And I feel like, and it was a production called The Boys Next Door. And just the feeling of being on stage, of learning lines, all of it it felt right. It was exciting, and to be part of an ensemble that was just inspiring for me. So that was where I started. It was 9th grade, and every year I kept coming back. And I was in a school that was predominantly white and international. As one of the only Black men in the theater department. There was one other, and he was a year ahead of me. But in some shows, they were casting the cast, and it's a family. And when you're a Black kid and you stand out, there's not a part for you. And so I was like, well, I don't want to not be involved. What else can I do? And they're like, well, you can be a stage manager. I was like, what's that? And then started stage managing. And so did stage management, acting, and just like learned a little piece of all of it. And by the time I was a senior in high school, this was one of the biggest bullets on my resume, was the amount of theater that we did and that I consumed in my time. It just became that thing I fell in love with. And I went into college thinking like, you have to get serious. You have to like, get ready to become an econ major and go to business school and, get a serious job. Like you can't bring this theater stuff with you. And then the first week I was at undergrad, I saw a production of put on by undergrads called the Triangle Club. And it was musical theater. It was irreverent. It was musical theater comedy. And I was like, I've got to do that. I want to do that thing. So I wasn't ready to give it up. And then, I spent another 4 years making the predominant like part of my education, part of theater. And I was doing plays, I was doing musicals, I was doing Shakespeare, a lot of things that I'd never done before. And, come graduation, whole same crisis of identity. I was like, what do you do with this? I have an English degree, I have a love of theater. I don't see myself like auditioning in New York for the rest of my life, like for parts and stuff. I was like, what do I do? And so I spent some time like, like everybody does, applying for jobs, internships. And I decided like I wanted to like find out what producing was like. And so I took my first internship with the Weislers, who produced Chicago on Broadway, to learn about international tour management. I was like, okay, this is interesting. It was like the business side of things. This kind of, vibes with me. I enjoy this stuff, right? I enjoy the numbers. I enjoy, how the sausage is made, right? Who are the people behind the scenes making sure this happens? I enjoy that. And that eventually led to me getting my first gig out at Intiman Theater in Seattle as an associate general manager. And the rest is kind of history and in my bio.
Wait,
right?
I'm
like
sorry. I need to stop you for a second. Did you just say your first job in theater was the associate general manager at the Intiman? Right. No, fair enough. Just needed to make sure I heard that right. Yeah. Fair enough.
It was a new position that they were creating out there in the theater. And one of my former professors, I was going out and she was taking over as artistic director. And she's like, listen, I'm going out to this theater. Would you be interested in going? Is there something here that interests you? And I was like, well, general management sounds right? Like you can find out. I was like, you learn a lot of different things, right? Like that's what I felt like general management was. And I felt like that was the place that I fit. And so I interviewed, I came out and got the gig and was there for about 10 months before the next chapter of my life started. But yeah, it was my first gig.
Wow. And then how'd you end up at, I almost said Yale School of Drama. How did you end up at the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale University? And we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I went to grad school. So when I came, I feel like everyone knows Intiman's story. Right around 2010 is where they had to close. And that was unfortunate. And that was, like I said, I spent 10 months there. I moved my life out there to the West Coast and like only had one family member out there with me. And I was like, I need to do something in case like things go bad. And so just, as a I don't know, last ditch effort, I was like, I could go to grad school. I was like, I can learn all the things I don't know. I can find out how this never happens to me if I'm ever running a theater. How about I do that? It was also coming off of 2008, right? Like the economy was not great. And folks were still sleeping on their parents' couches, with full, who used to have full-time jobs. So I thought, I said, maybe go to grad school, graduate into a better economy and see what's out there. So I applied to schools and I ended up at Columbia for their MFA in theater management and producing. And that for me, again, was one of those moments where like, I want to learn how to do this. What do I need to learn? And that program teaches, commercial and nonprofit theater. And so I thought, hey, why not? And so I get there and I'm interviewing and I'm talking with one of the current students, and he's a Black man also. And I'm really excited. And I'm like, what's the experience like? He's like, and he told me in that year, and that was 2011, he's like, I'm the first Black man to graduate from this program. I'm going to be the first Black man to graduate from this program, a year ahead of me. And so it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, I was like, the scarcity is real. Up until that point, I hadn't seen a lot of people who looked like me. So I just assumed we would always be in scarcity, right? Like my view of the theater world was like this big, you know? So I did that program and I was like, I really enjoy regional theater. That's where I want to be. That's where my heart is. I was in New York for a little while. I worked at the Civilians. And then I got a call from a friend who was like, we have a GM job open at Two River Theater. And I was like, well, that sounds too big of a job for me. I don't think I'm ready. I'm finishing grad school. And I remember, they were on the phone with me and they're like, Kelvin, would you just take the interview? And, and I did. And, I ended up landing that job too. And just, again, it was one of those
Great.
moments.
So your second job in theater was general manager. Okay. Just making sure. I'm just tracking it.
So it's, it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm stepping in at a LORT theater, and I don't know what I'm doing yet, right? I've prepared myself as much as one can in grad school, but I haven't done that job. I haven't been the person managing the department. And I sort of just dove in with both feet. And it was a learning experience. It was an incredible opportunity for me to think about where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do, what I'm interested in, the kind of theater I want to make, and how I want to do that. And I wasn't there but for maybe a few months before I got really hooked up with TCG. That's when I got the Spark Leadership Program. I started going to LORT meetings. My boss took me to my first LORT meeting, and it was in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And that was like the first sort of moment where I sat in a room and looked around at all the folks who were leading major regional theaters across the country. And they had managing directors and artistic directors were invited to that meeting. And again, it was one of those moments where you look around the room and you start playing the numbers game. And I was like, where are all the other folks of color? And it's like, it's a handful. It really is a handful. But when that happens, you stand out. Right? Yeah. So folks start zooming in and zeroing out on you like, hey. And so you stick around long enough and you meet more people, and folks started telling me about this word EDI. And I was like, what's that? You know what I mean? And we had these consultants in from the Racial Equity Institute, and I'll never forget them talking about equity, diversity, and inclusion. I was like, oh, you have a name for it. There's a reason that I've only seen so many people who look like me, and I've never seen any of us in leadership. So you're telling me this is the reason. And it was really edifying because I again, as I said, I just came into the field really. And so I started to say, okay, they're recognizing there's an issue. They had formed an EDI committee, and just through some kind of talks and over time, they were like, do you want to join the EDI committee? And I was like, well, yes, I do want to advocate for other folks who look like me. I do want to understand why none of us are getting opportunities. But, that's what happens is you get on the EDI committee. And that, back in 2014, 2015, it was like a good idea, right? Be in the room. And because of that, it just led me to so many other connections. And one of them was Victoria Nolan, who was the former managing director and a deputy dean at Yale and for Yale Rep. And so we'd worked together for a number of years. And right around 2016, she was like, listen, I'm creating this job of general manager. I'd love for you to apply. And I was like, nope, Vicky, that sounds like too big a job for me. You guys 3D print managers every year. Why would you want someone who didn't even go to your program, who did, who's this young and early in their career? Like she said, did you see the posting? I said, yeah, I saw it. It's not for me. It's not mine. And she's like, Kelvin, would you just take the interview?
I'm sensing a pattern, sir.
I'm not kidding. I mean, it was too consistent. And I was like, wow, I had always counted myself out, but it isn't until moments like that when someone stands in front of you and just says, just do it, right? Stop underselling, stop undercutting yourself, move And so I interviewed, right? And I was like, I knew how complex this place continues to be, right? And I looked at it and I was like, how many other people will ever have a job like this at your age with your experience?
Right.
How many other
Right.
Black people are going to have jobs like these? And what will it mean for students in an MFA program to see a Black man in a position of leadership? Because that's not what I had in grad school.
Yeah.
Not one professor of color in the entire 2.5 years I spent in that program. Not a single person who was teaching there. Right.
Well, it makes sense. That makes sense as to why there weren't any folks that went through that program until the year before you came in. Yeah, because and it goes down to EDI. The representation wasn't there at the leadership, so it's not going to be there at the student level.
Yeah. Right, but I didn't have the calculus, right? I wasn't doing all that math then, right? Looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, I don't even know how you're allowed to get away with that in 2021. So it meant a lot for me to apply. It took a lot for me to see myself as being someone who could be viable for a position like this. But I thought mostly of, this means something. This has to mean something. And so that's how I ended up here. And again, through encouragement and from my colleagues in the field, right? I mean, that is how you end up on these lists of people who, when jobs are posted, when announcements are made, like that is how those relationships are built. And I needed that. I wouldn't say I have had a mentor, up until that point really in my life, but I thought of Vicky as one of those people just because of the closeness of our relationship. And so it worked out.
There's a couple of things in that reminds me of Tribe Called Quest with industry rule 10,080. I'm gonna say this is Jacole's rule 10,080, like say yes, like that's her rule. And another thing that I'll tell you, like when you were like EDI, what's that? That was me last summer. I was like, what is EDI? Oh, you mean this thing I've been talking about my whole damn time in this industry? I didn't know there was a name of it. I just been talking it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now it's EDI, DEIA, DEI. You can mix up the letters all you want. Like it's still the conversation that needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually want to jump in. I'm gonna pre-apologize to Ahmed because like I'm going. I got my list. I'm going. But get in there, Ahmed. Get in there when you can. But I actually want to start with TCG. You mentioned that you had started going to TCG and one of the Spark leaders. My first true TCG experience is where we first met in 2019 at TCG in Miami, and I tell people my experience of TCG and they're like, what? Because I went to Miami and it was blackity black, black, black. That whole conference was just, there was so much space. There was so many room for peoples of color, for Black people, for women of color. It was my last day of the conference where it was my first time in a mixed session. And I looked around and went, oh man, because it was the first time I wasn't in a room with all Black people. And it's like, oh yeah, there's white people here too. Okay, all right, I guess we got to give space for they're going to take the space. Okay, there we go. But it was, I was so profoundly moved by that conference because like that photo, I love that photo that we took in the room, the theater leaders of color.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea there were that many of us out there. But I tell people that experience and they're like, you had what experience at TCG? Blackity what, black what? And because I understand that that's a bit of an anomaly for that organization and they're growing and they're learning. Can you just talk a little bit about kind of leading up to that? Because obviously you've been in that room deeply for almost a decade prior to that.
Yeah, so it I felt like that's where I was aware, because I didn't actually get to go to a TCG conference until maybe 2015. Because I missed 2014, so I wasn't sure, I didn't know much about it. But when the Spark leadership fellows announcement came out, I got so many emails about it, and folks were like, you need to apply to this. And I felt some type of way when I saw it, because I knew it was targeted towards leaders of color. And it was an impressive fellowship. And I was like, I feel like this is the first thing people have been energized to send me because it's about my skin color. Right. So I did not receive it as positively as I thought I would. But again, it was one of those moments where I was like, the cohort, I'd never had that. I'd not been around other people who had similar aims, designs, pathways, and drive and experience as me at my age, or in my sort of career level. And so ultimately I was like, well, I want to see what this is. And I want to interview. And the more I talked about it, the more people told me what TCG was. I was like, okay, I need to be here. I need to be involved. I want to know what it's like. And they had 10 slots open. They were very upfront about it. And I'll never forget, in the interview, they had gotten me hyped up about it already. I was very excited. And so it was a whole panel, and I think it was on a conference call. And they said, Kelvin, what would you do if you didn't get selected for this cohort? I was like, that's okay. I was like, I'll find out who you pick, and I'll go make relationships with all 10 of them myself. Because I was like, I'm not going to miss out on that. I was like, you're doing something for me that I've never had. So I was like, just by virtue of identifying the 10 people that did get the fellowship, I need to be in a room with them. So I'll do that on my own. And maybe that was enough to convince them that I needed to be in the room. But getting selected for that fellowship, I think, profoundly changed my life. Because the 9 other folks who were in those groups were all dubbed ready for the next step in executive leadership in their next career move, right? The TCG wanted to invest in these people, and that catapulted us. And that's where I met Carmen Morgan for the first time. And I think it's before she even launched Art Equity, but she was doing the institute work with TCG, and I was just enthralled. I was like, oh, this is at another level. This isn't just an EDI committee. You are devoting resources, energy, time, and attention to actually making the change, and you are funding it. You are giving us professional development. So that kind of launched me into it. And when I went to my first TCG conference, Jacole, that I had the same feeling. Right? I see all these people. It's not just executive leadership. Therefore, it is more diverse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you start falling into affinity groups. You start learning about, and again, it's just like me getting plugged in to something I had no idea about. This whole community existed, and I knew nothing about it until that year. And that's when you start pointing at people. They start seeing you, your name, you start getting together, you're mingling, you're at the bar. And I was like, this is what I wanted. This is what I needed to get through what I've been going through, feeling isolated and feeling like it's always just going to be you. You're going to have to be the change in the room. And I was like, no, here are these 9 other Spark leaders, talented, exciting, like, Ivy League educated people. Like this was a moment to be on fire about what I was doing. I got re-excited about being in this industry because I finally got to see the broad spectrum, and that those folks were so inviting to me, right? From jump. I mean, nothing other than just like, you're sparkly, or we've heard about you, right? That's what just started happening. So that's what took me up to. I mean, like, so fast forward to 2019, I'm already in it, right? I've been doing this for a number of summers and coming back to the conferences and meeting people, but that's the joy, because I want to be that enthusiastic person receiving other people of color in different conversations in different rooms, because it was like being just a part of this network, being part of this family, right, is a game changer for practitioners who might feel isolated in their own institution. And I don't think we can undermine that. We can't. That feeling of loneliness you get because you're doing your job at your theater. You're not always plugged into this national conversation in that way. So I think that was one of the energizing things that really changed the course of my career.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that Ahmed and I can both relate. We know a thing or two about feeling isolated at our institutions.
Yeah, I think the thing that keeps coming up over and over again, right, Jacole, is that I didn't see anyone who looked like me in that space. I didn't see anyone who looked like me to show me the path to go, like, and that was my story. Like, for a while I thought I was saying it too much, but then it'd be like guest after guest after guest after guest after guest would come on. And it's funny, like you said, like, wow, how could you get away with a thing like that in 2021? But we now see, as the different affinity groups that we're all on and part of, and we see the national conversation, we're seeing how much that was actually happening nationally, and how many people were feeling that feeling of isolation, and like, well, I don't know, I'm the only person who looks like me in this space, or I'm one of the only two in this space. We always talk about when I first became an administrator, and it was going to the Tessitura conference of 1,300 people, and I was literally like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over 5 days. I counted 7 other Black people out of a conference of 1,300 that worked in this software, that were partaking and using this software nationally. And I was just like, wow, we just not in this space. Like, since we're just not here. Like, what's the deal with this? How are we just not here? Like, non-existent in this. I mean, 7 out of 1,300 is non-existent. As far as I'm concerned, that's almost non-existent. So it's just amazing that we just keep hearing that over and over again. And it's like, yeah, in 2021, and we're still hearing that.
Right. And I mean, and again, it's even in how you say it, right? Non-existent, right? Versus like severely underserved, severely underrepresented, right? Because like a lot of folks count us out. Right. And that is, I don't think folks have actually grasped how demoralizing that feels, to walk into a place where you don't feel welcome, but and you receive all this privilege of access that you don't even have to think about it. And that's one of the things that I grappled with, because you're right, I've been to the Tessitura conference. I mean, it's the same thing where I was like, wait, really? This is technology. Like, what? How? Right? So you ask these questions and you show up, and I now, and this happened as I was starting. I was like, how do I change that? And how can I do that? Now it's shifted to how can we do it? Right? Because I feel like I have a squad that's much bigger than just me, right? We are branched, we are out into the world. And I think that is the greatest superpower that we have, as each other. And to access, that's why I believe in building cohorts. I believe in putting people like ourselves together. And I do that in my personal life, especially for people in theater. Like, I was like, we group up immediately. If I see you, and I know y'all don't know each other, I'm gonna connect you. Right? I was like, you're going to strengthen that chain, because I want that feeling of isolation to go away for everyone else.
Kelvin, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about that, if you don't mind. And because even hearing you say that, I don't know if I've said this story on this show before, but that needing of community, that seeing somebody and going, I see you, and that acknowledgement. And I'd love for you to talk more about that, because I will never forget. It was when I was an agent and I was at the theater. I have told this story on the show before, but I'm at the South Bay CLO. It's a huge, giant, almost opera-sized house. And there's this one dude, Kevin. We would always see each other. He was tall too. And we would always, just make sure we gave each other a nod, or I would always be like, okay, there's one. Got it. I'm not the only one. And my coworker at the time told me that it was racist, the way that I was always seeking out other Black people in the space. That's racist. Why do you have to identify? I'm like, you see somebody else in an Ohio State sweatshirt and you're like, comrade. That's what I'm doing. And I don't know that she truly got it. And folks, because they say to us, oh no, you're isolating yourselves because you grew up. You grew up in the lunchroom. When we're in these big first day of rehearsal rooms, I'm gonna stand next to the other Black person, or I'm gonna make sure that, so we do cluster up, and that is seen as us isolating ourselves. But can you talk a little bit about the importance of why that's necessary, why that's instinct, why we do that?
Yeah, because just in the way that she said it, she made it seem like it was your fault you had to do that.
Yeah.
And not years and centuries of conditioning. And I don't feel like I've had anyone be that bold with me, Jacole. So one, I'm sorry that happened to you. But two, if they did, I was like, how can you blame us? You know, folks with power and privilege tend to gravitate to more power and privilege. So forgive us for trying to find community, just a connection to someone else who looks like us, because guess what? They might be going through some of the same things we are. And maybe it feels good to actually share in that. That is one of the things that I have continued to find empowering about what we do as theater people, is when we gather. And you know, and we talk about a myriad of things. We talk about everything but plays when we get together. You know what I mean? There's like a whole laundry list of things that we had to get through. But again, I'll use the Spark leaders as an example. When we started sharing stories of what it meant to be high achieving folks of color in our industry, in our particular paths, the hurdles that we were facing, it was, you know, I think it was strengthening just to one, say it out loud, but to also know you weren't crazy, because other people had seen it too. Other people had been through it too. They have that Karen at their workplace, right? And that for me is just so deeply moving. And it feels weird to say that about, like, you know, a job, right? Like, just having gone and had those experiences and sharing that with someone else, it made you part of a community, and you say, you know what, I've been through that, you're going to get through it too, and here's why. That's necessary. You know, the whole, why are all the Black kids sitting in the cafeteria together? I know that feeling, because I went through that in middle and high school, right? I was the only Black boy in my entire middle school when I switched there. And I was tall, right? So first day they saw me, the basketball coach made a beeline for me.
Right.
I was like, I don't know how to play basketball. He's like, you'll learn. Right? You know what I mean?
Right.
No,
And
literally same. Literally same. Lawrence, Kansas. I was a sophomore. I moved from Vegas to Lawrence. I was 6 foot already, and the basketball coach came to me. Hey, I need you on my team. I said, Coach, I can't play. You don't want me on your team. He said, you're 6 foot. I need you just to stand just like this under the basket. That's
Yep.
all I need you to do. No,
Put your hands up.
Kid. Yep.
Put your
That's
hands
all I need
up.
you to do.
So when I think about that conditioning, right, of like, we can foster community together, we can find commonality together, just from, you know, signals we get about our skin, right, and who's in the room. And not all, you know, I wouldn't say just because I met every Black person that's who I needed to be in community with. But if I drop you on a foreign planet and you only see one more human in a crowd of aliens, you're not going to talk to them. You're not going to sign up to. So that's why I don't understand what's racist. It's a protection mechanism from racism.
Mm-hmm.
It's for us to gather and talk and commiserate and talk about, oh, okay, you too, that's happening to you. I've needed it this whole time, because again, being a part of predominantly white spaces, especially in education, especially as you're trying to make a professional career for yourself, I just thought that was the way things were going to be. Honestly, coming out of college, even, I was like, oh, it's always just going to be just me sitting over here, being the only, you know, Black person, being the only person of color in these rooms, because this is the career I wanted. I had convinced myself that was true. And that all changed again when I started to find other people who looked like me. And I was like, oh, that's a lie. There's more out here. There's more of us out here. So anytime I can gather us, I'll do it, because I know what the payoff is.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like that translates to life, right? Like the questions I always got growing up was always like, "Hey, Ahmed, how come when you're walking down the street and you see another Black man or a Black woman, what's the nod? What is you know that? You don't even know those people." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's a recognition of knowing we made it to this point, because we understand the hostility that our moms and dads and grandparents had to come through to get here. So it's a recognition. You know, it's just like, yeah, I don't know that person, but hey, what's up? Good to see you alive. Good to see you functioning. Good to see you walking the street. Good to see
Hmm.
you made it. Good to see you're here with your head up and doing what you got to do. You know?
And at the
Yes.
most surface level, for me, it's I'm acknowledging your humanity
Yes.
because
That
so
part.
many people on the street do not and will not. So I'm gonna take a moment. Hey sis, I'm gonna take a moment to acknowledge that you are here and you are human and you belong.
You have no idea how many folks of color I just hug on sight. Hugging people is an intimate like act, right? And you don't do that with everyone, but when you show up into spaces like that, it helps, right? Because that person is taken in cues. They're based on their life experiences. They could be having a traumatic moment just standing in that kind of room.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about seeing your humanity, Jacole, that is one of the things that I, in pre-COVID actually, that I really just did not enjoy about our industry, or how I worked in a theater space. You know, I don't want to put that on the entire industry, but I was like, y'all weren't treating us like humans.
Yeah.
I'd get a job, you'd sit me down at a desk and leave me there and say, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's not humane.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you go into a creative art making organization that is mission driven and that is focused on community. That's not how you do that. And I feel like the pandemic has actually forced us to confront that because we needed connection again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting in screens like this again, and trying to figure out how to find community. And again, shared tragedy, right? Shared experiences actually brought a lot of us much closer together, um, in a shockingly like beautiful way. But I was like, I hope you all now pay attention to the people who work for you and with you,
Mm-hmm.
that you are treating them like humans on a regular basis. And I feel like that is the lesson I'm taking out of this, is the shorthand and the sort of white supremacist culture of like cutting to the point, jumping to the agenda, and knowing nothing um, about the persons that you're working with, that is about their humanity and not their output. You know what I mean? And so it changes um, my relationship with you when you can make that connective gesture.
It's I want to go to, if you don't mind, I think that that's a beautiful segue into some of the online conversations and the dismissing of humanity. And I know that this last year, I think, has, for me, just deepened the divide between beliefs, whatnot. I'm being very inarticulate right now because I'm trying to figure out how to segue into you have had to advocate online in some very, very difficult conversations. And I'm specifically thinking of an instance really when everything was coming to a head after Ahmaud Arbery, after George Floyd, after Breonna Taylor, where finally, Black voices were being centered in a way that they weren't, and people were having to stop and listen, and we were centering, and all of the conversation had become about this. And there was a white man from another marginalized community that became very vocal. And it was, okay, I hear you, Black people, but we need to pay attention to this. Why is this being ignored? I believe that if I remember the exchanges correctly, you really tried to call in a beautiful, just harmonious way of, let me teach to this teachable moment, but that person was not in a place to be teachable. And we've all had those moments. You've had a few as you are really lifting up your voice as an advocate. I don't know what the question is. Once in every show, I have a question that's not a question. So this is my question that's not a question.
Sure.
I want to acknowledge that, and I would love to have you talk about that.
Yeah, it's I think you stick with this long enough and you learn to take your anger out of it. And maybe I shouldn't even say you learn to take your anger out of it. You're conditioned not to be angry, or demonstrate that in any visible way. So even in my work life, I cannot, you know, I had someone say, you can't even get animated, because once you start to speak your truth and you start to vocalize in the same tone, same energy as your white counterparts, you're labeled. They actually don't hear what you say, and they've interpreted what you say to be something very different. So I know that getting into online spats like looks cool for some people, but it's not. You have to exercise your best judgment because you need to protect yourself. So when I had this moment, Jacole, and I'm reading, this man's confusion, um, I'm reading their inability to read the situation and how it's impacting me. And for the first time, or one of the first times, I realized this isn't about me. This is about you. So if we're going to make this about you, let me tell you something that you need to hear, because maybe it'll be better for you. This will not help me. I do not feel better by educating folks who come in with white privilege. It doesn't make me feel great. Like I'm telling you, no, I need to give you information that you need, that you are clearly overlooking. And I don't often engage this way, being in this job, being a very visible voice, as you said, like I can't afford to go off on someone, because that isn't what we're modeling. That's not what we're teaching. So I had to be patient. And when I felt that this person just wasn't getting it, and they were centering themselves, and they were, essentially saying, I hear you, Black folks, but what about us? You need to show up for us too in this community. I was like, you don't get to tell us what we need to do.
Yes.
You don't. You may say, I was like, and you can do this on your own page. Keep raising advocacy for your marginalized group. You keep doing that. What gives you the right to come here on my page in a post that is about our need to pay attention to these issues, and gives you the right to take the microphone and center the stage on you? Why? And I had another white man try and help me, or they thought that they were helping me understand this man's point of view. And again, this was someone who was in my friends list, who was reaching out to me saying, oh, well, he's part of this group, and this is why he might feel this way. And, I've had someone from that marginalized group in my life, and, it makes me really emotional. And I was like, well, that's where I actually lost it. And I said, so you came to this random stranger's defense and didn't want to ask me about what I'm thinking, or if you could weigh in, or if I wanted to hear your opinion. And again, at the height of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, like every name that was coming up, I was in no place emotionally to be so considerate and polite.
Yeah.
I was on the edge, where a lot of folks were, because I was just like, should I leave my house anymore? Right? Yeah. I don't want to be the next headline, right? I can't go for a run down my block. And so when that happened, Jacole, I was like, this had to be a teaching moment for them. And once again, I had to provide that. But I was like, I chose when to disengage. I was like, you can take time. I was like, please find someone in your community that you love who will explain this to you better and longer than I can, because I actually can't be invested. I was like, I can see when you are no longer interested and engaged in being taught or listening. And I need to move on. I need to pull myself out of this discussion. And I think that's what I have learned to do in this year, is to protect myself and my feelings. And all the while learning, right? I can develop an understanding, I can develop empathy. But there's certain things that I'm just not going to do anymore. And I think we need to say no to those kind of things more and more, because it becomes a skill. And that person, whether or not they took that lesson, they reread our chat message back and forth and get to that point, I don't know. But that is for them.
I will tell you they didn't, because that person was asked to step down from their position. And in their message out about leaving their position, they very much centered themselves and said, I am stepping down from this position to make space for someone else. No, you weren't. You were asked to leave that position, and you're going to center yourself, and you are going to make it seem like you were doing the right thing here when really you were wrong. Sorry, Ahmed, I just had to jump in. I see your wheels turning so hard. Please, 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 please.
No. I'm just listening. It's just taking me back over the year. It's just taking me back over so many of these numerous, things that we've seen and these numerous types of conversations that we've seen to where, you know, we've all had to make the decision, right? To where like, oh, I'm tired. I can't. There's only so because I'm completely honest. Like I love theater. I love the opportunity. Me right now, my goal is to get more black and brown kids in theater. Like that's where I'm at. That's where I stand on. Like that's my gateway in this thing. There's some people got this and this and that and this that. Like yeah, that's great. We all love theater with all this big theater community. That's great. Kumbaya, all that. My goal is to get more access. Is to get more people who have access into this thing, and so that's always first and foremost. Like in every meeting, whenever these situations come, my mind always goes to, okay, how do we get more people involved in this? I don't care if you really learned your lesson or not. Are there tools for me to get more people in these doors? Because I know that's the only way it's going to change. If more people come in these doors, if there's so many people who have so much passion to do this, but they can't afford an internship. They don't have Big Daddy's bucks behind them to do whatever they got to do and take whenever. Like I don't have. So my job is to get more. Like that's where me and Freedom started at, right? Like, hey, we're in this because we needed a gig. If it wasn't for a paycheck, we wouldn't be in this space. We needed to work. We needed just happen to be we're able to get in this. You know what I mean? And so it's just like you said, Kelvin. You have to find we found lanes where it's like, okay, but that's for you to figure
Yeah.
out. If you are not culturally curious, if you don't see changes within yourself that you need to honestly, because even us in these conversations, we're finding shit in ourselves. Like we're finding stuff in ourselves about ourselves, that preconceived notions that we've had. Me and Jacole talk about it's like how many people, if it wasn't for this situation, how many wonderful people in this space would we have not have met? Mm-hmm. How many of these wonderful artists and creators and administrators all across this country with the same stories we might not have ever met? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, you get to a point where you're like, okay, that's your problem. That's on your heart to deal with. That's for you. That's your homework. It is not. I'm sorry. I can't be the magical Negro today. I can't do it. I don't have the energy to be the magical Negro. I had the energy to come in here and get the job done. That's what I do have. But I don't.
And sometimes barely that.
It's huge, right? And I've had I've had to like pivot my like thinking when I come up against those moments, right? Because when I get in those moments of tension, Jacole, and I'm reading, my heart is like on the outside of my chest, right? I'm like heated. And I think about now, I was like, if you're not invested in our mutual and beneficial understanding and our own betterment, if you're not invested in that for me, if you are not trying to see me and better me in these conversations, and instead you are trying to play devil's advocate, you are trying to center yourself, center your privilege, tell me that, that I'm not thinking the right way about this. If you can't do that for me, I actually can't invest more in you. Not more time, not more space or education. I actually can't do that for you anymore. And that's the pivot I've had to make. And that's a judgment call when I'm talking with folks and we're having a conversation, when I'm consulting, I hear it. And when I see it and I was like, oh, this person isn't invested, unsubscribe. I can move on.
I have a very dear friend who reached out to me a few months ago, and mind you, this is a friend that I love dearly, but I have had to take breaks from on Facebook because I can't. And so she came to me and she said, hey, I'd really like to learn. Can you and I have a conversation? And ultimately, after consulting my text group, the Black Queens of American Theater, I went black. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. But after consulting these women, I went back and I said, no, we can't have that conversation because I cherish our friendship too much. and I am too deep in it and you are not yet. And I will say something that will hurt your feelings in trying to find a teachable moment. So no, I can't enter that into that conversation with you. But here are some resources. Here are some podcasts. Here are podcasts by white people talking about it. You might be able to digest that a little bit better. Here are some things. Go to those. I will invest in these things as well. And then we can have conversations about what you've consumed. But I can't start that conversation.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
She has not come back to me saying, I read these things, I'm ready, which to me says she didn't read those things. So she was never ready. She didn't want to learn. She wanted me to explain it to her.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be the one. I can't be the one.
You don't have the time. You're not paid for it. And I want to get paid for it. If I'm going to spend the time, energy, and bring you my analysis and my brilliance and my education, you can pay me for it. Mm-hmm. Sure. You know, but and I think we have to be very careful about, you know, when we're stepping in this work, because I now start to get you know, these you know, I don't even know what to call them, but it's the call that you get from your colleagues. It's like, I'm having this issue at my theater with, you know, I'm having this issue with my board, I'm having this issue, and they're asking me as a friend, but I was like, ooh, this is energy, this is taxing. I should have been paid for that hour and a half I spent on the phone with you. Mm-hmm. My life experience isn't for your education. I'm trying to live.
Can you say that again for the people in the back?
My life experience is not for your education. And I think we need to be sensitive, or more sensitive and more generous with ourselves, because it's been underestimated what we contribute when we walk in a room, when we sit in a board meeting, when we're giving staff presentations, when we are doing our jobs. We're carrying so much with us. And I used to try and ignore it. And I was like, no, you've got to be tough. You've got to be rigorous. You got to be in the room. You've got to put in the hours, like not realizing that you still have so much weight on you that you didn't put there. And you have to figure that out, and everything costs. So I've tried to do this work more meaningfully and more intentionally. And I don't do it in the Facebook comments, right? I do it in my life. Right? Because she didn't want to go read the books because it meant she had to sacrifice something in order to gain understanding and prepare to do the work. And this is the thing that I ask people now when I go into this work. They're like, Kelvin, how do we fix diversity at our theater? And I've had that happen to me in a job interview. And now my question back to them is, are you willing to do the work? And do you know what the work is? And it stops the conversation. It stops the conversation. That second question,
though, and do you know what the work is?
It doesn't take a rocket scientist. I can Google maybe 5 articles in the next 5 seconds and give you a starting point. But folks are depending, and I just was reading The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, because my executive coach said, you know, you should look into this. And what I'm learning about is banking education, right? And when we are thinking about banking education, it's like, I know nothing, pour your wisdom into me. Teach me everything you know, because I know nothing. And when it comes to equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism, and accessibility, you do know something. We need to shift from this banking approach to EDI training and workshops to one that is problem solving, right? That is problem focused, that we actually need to engage together to solve these things together, our mutual and beneficial understanding. That's what it brings me back to. That is how I want to be in community with folks now. And that is how I approach it. I have had to change and pivot because I think I have smiled and nodded enough at this point to say, actually, I want to know if you're willing to do the work, and do you know what it is? And if you don't, what are you willing to give up to find out? Your comfort, your weekend, you know what I mean? Like, what are you willing to do so that I don't have to further burden myself? And that's what I hope we get to. That's what we develop as communities now, right? We, you know, Nicole Brewer talks about being about her beloved community and being in right relationship with people. And it is a forefront of my mind now. Because if you don't want to be in right relationship, if you don't want to be a part of my beloved community, move on.
Right.
Right? If you don't want to do the work, if you're not ready to have conversations about EDI and anti-racism, that's fine for you not to be ready. But what you're not going to do is stand in the rest of our way. That is one of the things that I'm trying to bring with me into all of my work, because I need it. And I think more folks who look like us need it. Those Black and brown kids, Ahmed, that you want to bring into the theater, I'm scared for them because I've done that. I've told them theater's a great place to work, and they go and they get a terrible boss who's microaggressing them out of the field again.
Right.
So now I can't trust everywhere I send these Black and brown kids. Now I need to fight to make sure people's in positions of power and leadership are treating them well when they get there.
Right.
And not just young people. I'm talking newly appointed artistic directors and executive directors and board chairs and board trustee members, right? Like we have a duty of care in our industry that we have probably neglected, and that neglect has fallen predominantly on BIPOC folks. And anything I can do to right that wrong wherever I am, I will try.
It's funny you say that because this is what I'm personally dealing with right now, and I knew I would have to deal with it. Um, I'm in a position now where I'm the director of venue experience, where we're completely reimagining what the house staff is, and not just that. Like, I'm not just here to run a house. I'm here to change what the experience is for everybody who walks through these doors, whether they're patrons, donors, workers, partners, collaborators. What is the experience when they deal with San Diego Repertory Theater? And so with that, the mandate has come along. And yeah, we want to get brown and black kids and people who are underserved in here. And it's like, yeah, but it's more than that. It's more than just that. It's more than just numbers, and it's more than just these kids. It's the kids who want to be here. It's the kids who have a penchant for this. It's the kids who might have a passion for this. It's the kids who will have an opportunity to blossom in this, and who can fit into this mold of the positions that I'm trying to fill. And then on top of that, it's not just my job to get them in here. Once I get them in here, what is my goal in educating them
Yeah.
to deal with the pitfalls that I face, but not lose heart and understand that this is for them as it was for anybody else, and give them the tools to learn the cultural differences that they're going to need to persevere and get through this. And once I start explaining it for that, like that, then people start getting like, oh, this is not as simple as just picking brown kids and black kids. No, this is the same as it is for everybody else. It's the same as for the other people who were picked to come in here and were picked to develop and come through here. It's the same goal, which means that's more attention, which means that's more care, which means that's more heart, which means that's more teaching and more giving, like you said, of yourself. That's doing the work too. Are you culturally empathetic, and are you culturally curious? If you don't have either one of those, you're doing busy work, and like Jeremy McQueen said, Jacole, it's performative allyship.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I think that's where I've pivoted as well. I'm not even using all the acronyms anymore, because I've actually discovered in at least in my perspective and in my mind, this is about culture.
Yeah.
It's always been about culture. It's not about the ED, or this is about cultures that you are perpetuating, and cultures that you are sustaining, feeding and growing and imposing on other people. And if you haven't done the culture work, if you haven't started to think about, because where I start in my practice is trust and psychological safety. And those are the two rungs of the ladder that we skip most often in doing this work, because we want to be part of the woke crew. We want to get the vocabulary. We want to be able to get that allyship out there, and again, virtue signal, instead of asking, well, who are we talking about? What are we talking about? Does everyone feel like they can trust one another in this environment?
Mm-hmm.
What does trust mean to you? Right? If we can't roll back and have that conversation, you're not ready to talk about anti-racism. You're not ready to talk about what the impact of this year has had on Black and brown folks, right? While you've watched from the comfort of your couch, this life has continued to go on, right? I heard a colleague say in a meeting recently, my life is not your professional development. So how do we take the onus back off of BIPOC folks and turn to actual allies? Because I don't think folks actually know what being an ally means. Yeah. Right. And in this moment, when Jacole, when we were talking about this exchange that happened on Facebook, like between me and this man, I was like, I don't know if you want to be an ally to me in this moment. Because allies step in when the hurt is happening, when the threat is present. Allies step in for their allies. They will receive that. And if you're not willing to do that, please don't call yourself an ally. Yeah. You might be an advocate, you might be a supporter, you might be down with the cause, but allies step in. And that's what I needed. That's what we need. We continue to need, but I think the work is culturally focused. And we don't do enough education around what it means to be a part of a culture, to be onboarded into it, and to accept it. And that is what I'm trying to teach young folks, especially young Black and brown folks, as we get ready to step in these environments. They pick up the phone and they call me, and I was like, okay, here's what you need to do. Right? Because that training I wasn't given.
Right.
I didn't have someone to pick up the phone and call when I was microaggressed in my first executive search for a position of leadership. And one of the comments from a board member to the search consultant was, I don't know if he'll do the work. Will he do the work? And it's one of the most painful experiences I talk about with my colleagues, because I was like, wow, in that moment, I was taking notes up until that point, and I heard that back and I went, what? It's like, am I late? Did I appear late? What did I say? Did I give off the impression that I was lazy, that I wasn't hardworking? And I was in my head for 2 days about it. And I was like, Kelvin, that's racism. Why are you even reacting? I was like, it's racism. And I was like, what about your resume says no work? What about where you've been says no work? And I think that was a moment I had to empower myself, right? Because I didn't have another leader of color to turn to who'd been on similar executive searches to say that happened to me too. I didn't have that. So now I have to do it for other people, right? Well, we're talking about and we're going and we're prepping and doing all these things together so that they're ready, that they're prepared, right? You don't want to be sort of sideswiped by it because those moments are so sobering. And I know a lot of my colleagues wear that on them about the harms that have been done. So I just hope more people are taking it seriously, because on the other side of this dramatic rainbow is joy. If we get all of this right, if we do better, if we invest and if we shift all of these things, we are talking about going back to creating art in one of the most humane and equitable ways in the history of this country. If we get this right, if we build better, and if we can build more communities and more Black and brown kids who find more people like the two of you out in the world that they can sit down and listen to and say, oh, this is how we protect ourselves. This is how we engage. If we do all of this well, there is joy. And that's what I'm trying to get us to, right? Like I said, we'll talk about everything but creating plays. I don't even know what your 2 favorite plays are, but I'll tell you mine, right? I love to watch August Osage County. Passing Strange is my favorite musical, right? Those are the things I want to tell other theater people, because it's like, wow, we talk about everything, right, but the art that we love, but the why, it's culture.
Yeah, exactly right. I want to ask you a couple of questions. I want to ask you a couple of questions before we run out of time about where you at.
I know. I was like, how did we get to 6:51 and we have not circled back to the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale University?
But that's how we get down, Jacole. That's how it happens, right?
That's how we do.
And I just want to get your take on a couple of things real quick. Uh, I just I want to get your opinion on, well, two things, because two things come in the conversation we're talking about. One is philanthropy and one is access.
Mm.
And I'll lead off with the philanthropy part, and it, just as much as you can, just to get your whatever take you can give me on this. Just the criticism. What are your thoughts on the criticisms that came with the renaming of the school, with the renaming, with with the large donation, but then along with that came the renaming of the school and the criticism of, well, this takes away from the historical name of the school, and what is, give me a little bit of what you think, or your thoughts on about these criticisms that have come up about the renaming of the school after the gift, and are they valid, are they not valid, are they somewhere in between?
Is Can we be specific about the criticism in
Yeah, oh,
particular? Yeah.
basically, yeah. So I'll start off with just people basically, well, this just takes away from the historical like name of the school. We're just putting somebody's name on it because they have a bunch of money, and does he even care about theater? And is it, so give me a little bit of that, like that. We'll start right there with that
But
type of
if I
criticism.
might, I'll add on to that the criticism. Couldn't you just give the money? Like, why does this white man need to? Because it wasn't Yale School of Drama that said, "Oh my God, David Geffen, thank you so much for this gift. We're going to name the School of Drama after you." It was a contingency of the gift, is that the naming, from my understanding, and that's what one of the criticisms are. Why couldn't you just give the gift? Why did you have to put your name on the building?
So two things again in the realm of philanthropy. It's just and then trying to get to sort of the naming. Yeah, I've never had $150 million to give away. So, one, having been a part of this process, and again, a part of the incredible team that put in the time, effort, and longevity of negotiating this deal, of this historic and monumental gift, was a lot of work.
Mm.
And its magnitude obviously is felt, and again, the benefit is understood. And so I mean, I appreciate that, again, both David Geffen, his foundation, the folks who work with him, Yale University, the School of Drama staff who were a part of this. It was a conversation that was had in rooms like that I wasn't in specifically. But when I think about the magnitude of the gift, I wasn't surprised.
Mm.
Right? When folks give a certain amount of money, their names go on things.
Right.
Again, I'm part of the industry that is not like cash flow, like positive all the time.
Right.
I work in nonprofit theater, right? I also work in an educational institution where every building I see has a name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It is part of practice. It is part of culture, right? This culture of philanthropy, which is to give and to have conditions and terms.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been in that position, so I don't know what reason or thought, or that is like, I want to put my name on a school and brand it. I've not had to make that decision. So when I think about the criticism, I think you'd have to talk to him. You can't talk to me about it, because he has other schools and other organizations and buildings with his name on it. And again, that is part of his practice in cultural philanthropy. That is part of a legacy. And if I wanted, if I had $150 million and I wanted to name something after my mother, I can do it.
Right.
Right. I don't know who's going to argue with me, about it, because it is, again, my philanthropic practice. And I think what folks are responding to is, again, what we have talked about, which is, sort of connecting this sort of capitalism to what our industry is and what it does. But I've never been able to divorce those two things from my own profession. Mm-hmm. Without capitalism, I don't know how our industry thrives. Without philanthropic support, consistently from the donor bases that have been cultivated over the decades, I don't know what our organizations become. We are in the process of discovering. We are getting in the practice of saying that we don't have to prize and center all things. But, when we think about taking away the historic name of the school, um, the David Geffen School of Drama is something that is new to us. It is new. And again, there will always be like sort of that hankering or that acknowledgement of that, well, it used to be Yale School of Drama, but it's changed. Um,
And things
Yale,
change.
yeah, and things change and quickly. And there's nothing, even in my position and even in my advocacy that I haven't been able to say like, the criticism stands because folks come at it from where their practice is.
Right.
And where their values are. And I was like, you can't impose your values on everyone. Um, and I just think we just have had to be really like diligent about just this process and explaining that, again, this historic gift is transformational. Every student who ever applies to this school in perpetuity will not have to pay tuition.
It's interesting. I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that part is getting overshadowed by the fact that this man put his name on the school. The fact that it wasn't just a gift for the school, it was a gift for every student who will ever attend that school. And I think you're absolutely right. That is way overshadowed by the naming.
Yeah, and that's what I hope not. I hope that's not true, Jacole. Like I really
excuse me, I mean in the current conversations. That
Yep.
Pardon me. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. It's just like I really hope that's not missed. And because you can't take one and not the other.
Right.
Right. Gifts come with conditions, right? You are given a mortgage with conditions. Right. I'm saying that because I just purchased a house. Right. Like, you know what I mean?
We didn't get to
it's
talk
like
about
I'm
that. I
taking
wanted
this
to talk
money.
about that
Right.
too.
You know what I mean? There are conditions. There's an understanding. And when I think about someone putting their name on a school, on a bill, I'm not that isn't foreign to me.
Right.
It's everywhere. Look at the name of our university itself is named after another white man. You know what I mean? And so putting a new name on it, it wasn't as shocking to me. And maybe I'm getting to that point where I'm like, getting older and being like, well, this is how it used to be in my day. But when I think I want to say what other people are thinking or feeling, but what I see in that acknowledgement, what I see in that criticism is there aren't, tons of BIPOC folk coming out here naming new buildings and naming new dormitories. It's not like we have it in droves, not like we have centuries of it, right? When it happens for folks in our community, we show up, we're excited, right? Princeton's about to get a brand new dorm named after, oh my goodness, I don't want to get the name wrong. But I think there are 2 dormitories that are about to be named for Black women. And that is exciting. That is a first, right? Like we don't have enough of that happening out in our communities and in our world. And again, at like historic and like, sort of these top institutions. And again, that gap in generational wealth. That's what I'm hearing, right? I don't just hear that it's about one person, one man, one gift. Yeah. This is about the history and practice of it. And I'm not gonna fight anyone who feels that way. Right? I get it. I understand why you feel that way. But it's about more than just that. It's about more than just this one instance and this gift. It is about our culture. It is about our history. And again, it is about a centering that we've not often been on the receiving end of, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things that I'm still grappling with. I don't want to say that I'm perfect, and like I said, I'm not reading from a script. This is me speaking from the heart. That I know that it's probably difficult to see that, but when you are in position of leadership, and when you are in a place of responsibility, you have to look at the whole. And the whole is our school is tuition free forever.
Yeah.
And transformational gifts like that don't fall out the sky 2 times a day. You know what I mean? This is the largest gift given to an arts institution or art school ever.
Yeah, ever.
And so when I think about that, I'm less flummoxed by the naming. It is an opportunity, and yeah, I'm still grappling with it. So that's why I said be specific about the criticism, because I was like, I haven't heard all of them, but I've heard that in particular, and I get it. It's change. It is different. And as we're talking about our anti-racist values, I feel like that's what comes up. It's in conversations about anti-racism and white supremacy culture, like, how is this happening? And I'm like, well, we're not the first or the last school to be renamed because of a donor.
You know what? People like to put their names on things. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Chris Ashley's official title is the Rich Family Artistic Director of La Jolla Playhouse.
Yep. We have a named deanship and now too. And, and again, I think that's about legacy. Yeah. And I've just never been in the position to have, to make any kind of gift where I could think about my own legacy in that way. Yeah. So again, I don't know what motivates people personally, but I know that it is a practice, and again, not to say that we don't deserve it too, but if we start getting, I would love to be the Oprah Winfrey assistant dean at the David Geffen School of Drama, right? I want to see more of our people putting their names on things too. I'm not gonna, I want to work for the Obama Performing Arts Center. I want to raise, funds for that when that happens someday, right? It's exciting when we see it, but we don't see it often enough for folks in our community. And I think that for me is I think that's the tension. So
that's why I wanted to ask you. I wanted to hear. I just wanted to hear what your opinions were on that, because it's what are we always telling the young people? Don't forget, this is show business. There is a business end to this thing. There's a business end to this, and people who donate, they rightfully so. Someone gives look, if I did have $150 million to give somebody, I probably will want my name around somewhere. Let's be look. Dr. Dre gives how many millions to USC to start a music school, and he gets criticized for that. People jump out the woodwork and, well, how come you didn't do it at a black school? How come it's and I think one of the other criticisms I saw is that, for me, I felt, as I was looking into it and trying to make myself play devil's advocate to hear what they were saying, and it was like, oh, well, this is a hindrance to access. And I had to be like, well, I don't know how it's a hindrance to access if it's tuition free. And they're like, oh, well, because this is just going to benefit people who are rich and the people who are poor. I'm like, it's free tuition. All this is going to do for me is that's going to encourage more people to apply. Yeah. So that's why I was like, sometimes these criticisms, it seems like, and it's almost like they just went and grabbed the black kids and was like, I'm going to use you for this argument for me to criticize something I don't like. You know what I mean? Which happens also. People use us when they want us to be a champion for their argument.
Yeah. Guys, I'm so sorry. I just want to acknowledge the time. It is 7:04, which means it is 10:04 where Kelvin is right now. This is obviously a conversation that could go on forever. Things that I didn't get to talk about. Connecticut, the third whitest state in the union, you being a homeowner, imposter syndrome. How have you survived theater? So these are things that I wanted to talk about, but we just don't have time.
I guess Kelvin's coming back for season 2.
That's what happens on the finale episode, y'all. You get a teaser for season 2. That's what it is. It goes the end, ... question mark, right? Thank you so much for inviting me, Jacole and Ahmed. This has just been incredible. And again, to folks who are watching out there, it is just an incredible privilege to be with these two, and to reach across coast, and share in this space with you both. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Man, Kelvin, thank you, man. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you to everybody who has been listening. And yeah, it's a wrap. Kelvin's coming back in season 2, so don't worry about it. He'll be
We will
back.
see you again, sir. We got a lot more to cover. Maybe Kelvin, we can even get Freedom on for that one.
Yeah. We'll make it happen. We'll drag him on for that one. We'll get him. We'll get him. Everybody, again, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you visit sdrep.org. Make sure you visit lajollaplayhouse.org. visit theoldglobe.org and check out. We know we getting there. We about to mix it up live. And look, we're not going to leave you hanging. Now, we said we're not going to be back live until September, but I got some things in the pot cooking. I'm going to bring you some best ofs. I think I'm working on some best ofs episodes. I'm going to go ahead and pull some cuts and talks, and maybe me and Jacole to get together and maybe give our opinion on some of the talks that we had and pull some of our favorite moments for y'all just to hold you over until we get back live. But we are really looking at revamping this thing. We want y'all to join us live, join the artists live when we get back to doing this thing. So, and thank you to AJ, who is behind the scenes, filling in for Sharisa, who has had her baby. Sharisa will be back soon. Thank you to everybody here at the Rep. Thank you to everybody at the Playhouse. Thank you to everybody at the Globe that helps put this thing together and put it out there. It is greatly appreciated. Dang, Jacole, I'm kind of tripping because I'm like, we're not going to talk to these folks in 2 weeks.
We'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be back. Thank you for listening.
We will be back. Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you, Jacole. Thank you, everybody who's listening. And we will talk to y'all again soon. Have a good night and a good weekend.
See you in season 2.